morning. So I'm Mary Ellen Carroll. I'm the Executive Director here at the Department of Emergency Management. Welcome. We're here today to talk about AB 911 or 911, and which is so going to help us from a technology perspective to bring our 911 system to what we call next generation. I've been the director here for a year, and it's just amazing how much we are able to accomplish, but with technology that is literally decades behind. We're so grateful to the leadership of our mayor and our governor to help us to bring forward this funding that honestly is going to help us come to a technology that most people in their day-to-day lives, in their personal technology, have above what 911 is. This is going to make our call taking more efficient, and honestly it's going to save lives, which is really the bottom line of why we're here. So thank you so much, and I'll turn it over to our mayor.
Thank you, Mary Ellen, and thank you all so much for being here today. I want to just add to what Mary Ellen said about what we need to do to take our emergency response system to the next level. Nowadays, it's not just about making phone calls. People are text messaging and delivering messages in a lot of different ways, and so it is time that our system reflect the changes in technology. And so AB 911 is just an incredible step forward that will provide us with the resources necessary to improve our system throughout the entire state of California. And I want to thank our governor for signing the legislation and his leadership and vision on moving us forward to the 21st century, because we know that when someone reaches out and they are in a situation of an emergency, that they clearly need help, and we need to have a better response system. I'm sure many of you remember years ago when cell phones just began, well, that was a long time ago, but cell phones first became a thing, and how people would use cell phones in some instances to call 911, but they would be transitioned to another county, and there was some difficulty in communication, and how we provided emergency response to get to that location. And so things have definitely gotten better since then, but there is so much that we can do to make it even better, and having the funding necessary to invest in new technologies so that text messaging and all the things that we do now to communicate are used in a way to address any situation, whether there's a wildfire or a heat advisory, or all of the different challenges that sadly we've had to endure. We want to be prepared, we want to respond in a timely manner, and we are ready to move forward in making those investments to do just that. And I want to introduce at this time our governor, who has again been a leader in this effort and on new technologies, and used to have my job as mayor. Welcome home.
Good to be here.
To our Governor Gavin Newsom.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you all for being here. And it is nice to be back. This is my first day on the job as mayor. Was in this building when I convened what we called at the time the Disaster Council. I was, I guess, in looking back, overly anxious that my time as mayor we would experience a major earthquake. Thankfully, we did not. I maintain that anxiety as your governor. That anxiety was only heightened after Ridgecrest. It's been heightened certainly after the last two wildfire seasons as well. As I've navigated this state, as I've learned more about our 911 system, it goes without saying, it's only reinforced that anxiety. The 911 system as we know it today was established in 1973. The technology is outdated. The technology lazily can be referred to as analog technology. It predates the internet, as the mayor suggested. It predates smartphones. 80% now of the activity that occurs around a 911 call center is smartphone-based, not landline-based. Yet we have a system to finance our 911 call centers that predates this new technology. We're overly relying on burdening landlines, and as a consequence, we have not been able to modernize our system, and we've been disproportionately burdening those that are holding on to that technology, which tend to be people on fixed incomes, tend to be seniors. So we're very fortunate. There's been efforts over the last few years to update our system that have fallen short. We were successful this year in pushing through our budget and ultimately through this what we call trailer bill to get to the point where today we can formally announce that by the end of this month we will have identified the vendors and we'll be moving forward with updating not only the statewide overlay on the 911 system, moving from analog to digital, but our 4 major regions that define this state. There are about 437 other call centers like this, 438 in the state of California, which is an extraordinary number. The reality is they don't have the technology. They don't have the tools to connect. They don't have the capacity to redirect call volume if something goes wrong or there's a surge in that volume. It is self-evident to anyone who lives in San Francisco when, not if, there's a major earthquake, the surge volume here will simply overwhelm this call center. Our ability, once this new technology is deployed, will allow the call volume, as an example, potentially to be redirected to Sacramento, redirected to Eureka, redirected to LA, redirected wherever the capacity will allow. That's what this technology does. It has a geospatial component. It allows for a substantial amount of bells and whistles. I can get into that, and I can ask our executive director of this, and I can ask the OES director to fill in the blanks. But it finally allows us to meet the challenges and needs of multiplicity of issues that we face as it relates to emergency planning, emergency preparedness in this state. So this is a big deal. I appreciate the reference that this is about lives, because quite literally this is going to save lives. And I am very proud of the legislature, including a number of Republicans. This was a bipartisan piece of legislation that allows us to modernize this system. Final words on this topic. There's a fee attached, and I know that generates headlines. We are still among the lowest in the nation in terms of that new fee that's been established. I think that's a nice and important thing to point out. Usually we're among the highest in areas. This is where we're among the lowest. And so I know there was some anxiety related to that, but I hope that assuages some of those concerns. This, by the way, in closing, has been this announcement today, part of our week of announcements around emergency preparedness and emergency planning. Yesterday I was up with Governor Schwarzenegger talking about our new C-130s, our new Black Hawk helicopters, new infrared technology and cameras and drones and the like that are going to aid and advance our efforts to deal with mitigation and suppression. 2 days ago I was talking about some of the work we're doing on vegetation management, prescribed burns, making sure we're more resilient in 200 communities across this state. We are stepping up our game. We're getting more serious than ever as it relates to emergency planning, emergency preparedness. Close to $1 billion is being invested this year in making sure California is more resilient and more prepared than ever. So I'm grateful for all the support we received up and down the state. I'm very grateful for the mayor's leadership in this space. It predates her time and tenure, respectfully, as mayor. She was on the fire commission leading these efforts for many, many years and is as conversant as any mayor in the state on the needs, desires, and aspirations not only of her constituents, but as it relates to the need to upgrade these technologies, and recognizes she can't do it alone. The state needs to do their part, and we're very honored to now be doing our part in this space. So we're grateful for that. And we're also grateful for you being here and happy to answer any questions, Carla, on topic, and then we will happily get to any questions for Mayor Breed that are off topic. Any questions on this subject? Yeah.
Hi, I'm Casey Ruffy, KPFA Radio. I was just wondering what you observed in your tour today.
Well, be honest with you, a lot of familiarity, and I think that goes to the reality. We were talking to Mark Guiducci, who's the OES director, Office of Emergency Service. I said, how does this compare and contrast with other call centers up and down the state? You would put this in closer to the top tier of those call centers, but that bar is not as high as it can be. But at the end of the day, that capacity is limited because of resources. Our new fee will generate about $175 million a year. It will allow these new service contracts to go in effect around October. We'll start implementing these new tools and new technology up and down the state. And that's what was missing, that state support. And this will allow, you know better than I, the capacity to do things you are losing sleep over currently. And do it in the next few months.
Yeah.
I mean, this is going to move pretty quickly. Again, August 20th, we're going to identify these vendors, and as soon as October, right, we're going to start seeing the application of this promise and promotion. Anybody? I'm hanging out in San Francisco more often. I love that. I have a lot of questions.
What do you mean you're losing sleep? Can you address
Oh, well,
that?
don't lose sleep. I shouldn't say that. She never sleeps
Actually-
anyway.
What do you mean by that?
Yeah.
How does it need to get
People
better?
always ask what keeps me. I actually sleep pretty well because I compartmentalize well. But so, as an example, one of the technologies that we all use every day to like grab an Uber, and your Uber can find you in a moment, or even ordering a pizza. That kind of technology for us, when calls come in, has not been available to us until really the last few months, and after extensive effort to work with third-party vendors who are helping to kind of pull this data together. And a lot of it has to do with the state of our technology. It just makes it a lot harder. So moving from this analog to a more digital at the most basic level, to describe it, is going to make that technology much more accessible to us, so that we can use that type of quick information that you use to catch a ride or to get your lunch to get help to you, whether it's law enforcement or a medical response or fire. And so it just speaks to the ability to have access to this kind of technology much quicker than we alone would have been able to go to. Secondly, and this is probably just as importantly, this will provide us with a lot more resiliency and redundancy. So the governor explained a little bit, and Mayor Breed, about how this allows us to have more mutual assistance between other jurisdictions and their PSAPs or their 911 centers, because we don't have to put everything in a suitcase and walk across the street. We'll be able to kind of flip the switch and be able to work out so that if we have an earthquake or a potential power outage that's extensive, we very quickly will be overwhelmed at our center. So this allows us to go to other jurisdictions who can pick up and get those calls and ensure that help is getting to people when they need it in the time that they need it.
Governor, you mentioned the fee. What is the fee, and who pays it?
It's going to be one flat fee across the board. We have multiple fees right now, landlines versus cells and the like, 33 cents. We are authorized to go higher. We are very confident that we will not need to go to what is authorized, which is closer to 80 cents. But 33 cents puts us on the lower tier in the United States, which again should calm folks. Current landline users are paying 50 cents today. That will reduce down to 33 cents. So again, 80% of the utilization is no longer landlines, it's smartphones, and the disproportionate amount of the smartphone use is on text and data, not necessarily voice. And so we have a system that's simply collapsing in terms of its funding capacity, and that's why we've been struggling to get this passed up in Sacramento, and fortunately we were able to do it this year in the budget with, again, a few Republican supporters. Interesting and not surprisingly, a few from North State and Butte County that experienced the ravages of Mother Nature's fury as it relates to the Camp Fire, and I think that really truly brought home this reality and need. And so I just want to acknowledge them, because they did something within that party rank that often is not done. They had the courage to do the right thing despite the political consequences, and I couldn't be more proud of those two individuals, as well as all of the others in the legislature that supported this effort. By the way, we were the first state, fun fact, not even that fun, it's not even that interesting, but first state in the nation in 1973 that mandated 911. We have lost our leadership a bit. We're now going to reassert our leadership. 27 million people use this system, You have 1.4, I think, just here in San Francisco. You drop, even for a minute, the calls, that literally puts lives at risk. And so it is not, again, an exaggeration at all. This is a life-saving fee that will go a long way to making California more resilient, more capable in a surge environment to do justice to what the taxpayers expect, and that is someone to answer the phone in an emergency 24 hours a day, 7 days a week.
Does this also will impact the cell phone companies? Are they involved in making sure that their systems are up and prepared as well?
Yeah, well, those companies are competing for these contracts, and so all this is in collaboration, all this is in partnership with those companies. And we'll see. I don't know who will end up winning these bids, but there's some well-known brands in the state that are competing. But I don't know if you want to talk more about the deeper collaboration with the cell phone companies, or maybe just flesh out other attributes of this system very, very briefly.
Sure.
Thank you.
In regards to the cell phones, what this will do is it'll harden that 911 connection from our community member on the street, whether you're using a cell phone, your office phone, your home phone. That connection through your provider, that's up to that vendor to be able to harden their infrastructure. But once it recognizes that you have a 911 call, we're going to create redundancy and resiliency in the network so it can get to our local dispatch center. That's what our job is, to make sure that 911 call is received, routed to the appropriate PSAP as quickly as possible. And we believe it can be done within about 3 seconds from the time you hit 911 till the time the dispatcher receives the call.
And just again, full disclosure, full implementation will take a few years like everything else, and these things don't just happen overnight. And I think by 2022, you should be fully
December
operational,
2022 is our goal.
absolute scale. Yeah.